それでははじめにこれから基調講演をしていただきます国際バカロレア機構オリベッカ・ハイノネン総裁をご紹介いたします。ハイノネン総裁は2021年に国際バカロレア機構総裁に就任されましたが、それ以前は2016年から2021年までフィンランド国立教育庁の教官として幼児教育から生涯学習に至るまでフィンランド国内のすべての教育・研修制度の発展及び国際化の推進に取り組んできました。またそれ以前はフィンランド首相の政務次官、フィンランド国営放送のディレクターなどを歴任されています。教育の力でより平和な世界を。ハイノネン総裁はすべての生徒が質の高い教育を受ける機会を持つべきであると信じており、より良い教育実践を世界に広めるべく、世界中を飛び回っていらっしゃいます。本日は急速な変化の時代、学校教育で大切にしなくてはいけないことは何か、AI 時代の大切な教育理念についてお話を伺います。それでは、基調講演、AI 時代にこそ必要とされる教育、オリベッカ・ハイノネン総裁、お願いいたします。
Mayor Narisawa, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished educators, it's a real pleasure for me to be today in front of you all and share my thoughts about how can we reach a meaningful education in the era of artificial intelligence. It was 30 years ago when I first came to Japan. At that moment, in the capacity of being the Minister for Education and Science in Finland. And it was with Minister Arima here in Japan at that time that we had very deep discussions that what would be a meaningful education in Japan and what would it be in Finland. And there were a lot of things that we aligned in our thoughts. And today, 30 years later, I must say that the world looks very different than it was at that time. I don't think I had a mobile phone with me on my trip to Japan. I was not looking definitely through my social media postings, and definitely also in other ways you can say that artificial intelligence was not in our agenda when we met. But those are the realities for today. And my organization, the International Baccalaureate, has a mission of creating a better and more peaceful world through education. But the question that we have to ask constantly is that in this era we are living, what does it mean when we are talking about a better world? What is better for the students of today? And what does it mean that we are talking about a more peaceful world? What does peace mean in this era? There are many researchers who are talking today that we are living in a world between times. that there is a long period where we have lived which has functioned well and has provided a lot of prosperity in our societies. And education has a lot to be thankful for contributing for that. But at the same time, we are also seeing that there are also a lot of problems that the world that we have created is now bringing up. And we see that also the things that used to work in the old world don't function anymore. The world is becoming different. And we are seeing in front of our eyes that how a kind of a new world order is kind of taking shape. We are seeing the questions that the artificial intelligence brings with it, like the questions now more and more important to ask that, what is true? What can we believe? I am coming from Finland, and there is a strong saying that a Finnish person doesn't believe anything before he or she sees it by his or her own eyes. But we are seeing today videos that never happened. So that won't work anymore. So we have to really think and be capable of understanding what that kind of a world is. And at the same time, we have also huge global challenges, like the climate change, or the loss of biodiversity, or pollution. And we need to be capable of giving the new generations to come up with solutions to those questions. In my thinking, one way that I have understood education is that education has two meta-tasks. Education has, first of all, it has the task of transferring to the new generations all that valuable knowledge, culture, sciences, arts, medicine that we have been capable of creating so far as humankind. But there is another meta-task, and that is to make sure that students are capable of creating their own future path, making their world the way they want to have it. In a world where occupations were inherited from mothers to daughters and fathers to sons, when you took care of the transfer task, the first task, you kind of automatically help also the young generation to make their own path. But we know today that occupations cannot be inherited anymore. That won't work. We are in a constant change of what is the human input in the world of work. And that means that we need to pay a special attention to the questions of how to enable the young generations to build their own path. And we need to also dare to make choices in education that enables the young generations to come to different conclusions that we have. If we are just transferring everything that we know, but not taking care of the second task, we are also transferring all the problems that we have created. And we definitely don't want that to happen. So I would say that there's a huge task in front of us to rethink the way that we have thought about education. And I'm so happy, as Mayor Narisawa was referring to, that we have the possibility with International Baccalaureate and the Bunkyo city to work together to help with professional development of teachers, for us together to take that kind of a step. Imagine a new type of education for the future. And there are certain ideas that, with the help of some slides, I would like to share with you. I do believe that in doing it, the most important question that we as educators must ask ourselves is that, what is the world we are living now? Why is that important? It is important because learning happens in the interaction between the learner and the world. That's the most important connection in learning that there is. And when the world changes, also that interaction between the learner and the world changes. And we need to understand that. Going kind of in a very simplistic way through the societal changes that we have been through in the last 250 years, we can say that we have lived through first the era of kind of industrial age. And the human input in that era was to use our hands and body connected to the machines in the factories. And that's, of course, in the Western world, it was Friedrich Taylor, whose actually ideas also landed quite well here in Japan, who said that is a good worker is somebody who is as dull as a bull. So a good worker should not think, because thinking is the leader of the factory to do. A good worker should not talk to other workers, because he or she might get kind of distracted of what he or she is doing. And that was the era and what was valued during that era. Then we moved from the factories to the offices, and we moved to the knowledge or information society phase. And what became important was our cognitive capacity, our capability to use our brains, to think and to analyze, transfer information and knowledge. And we started thinking that we as humans, we are the peak in the world in cognitive skills. We were not anymore connected to the machines, but we connected ourselves to the to the chairs. So we started sitting 8 hours a day locked with a chair, and we were using our brains. And now we are faced with a situation that we have been capable of creating a technology that is with cognitive tasks faster, more efficient, more reliable than we humans are. And that leaves us with the question that, what is it left for us humans now? If we weren't the peak in cognitive tasks, what should we do? Many researchers are calling that kind of a situation an ontological shock for us humans, that it makes us really reconsider who we are. What does it mean to be human in this era? I do believe that that is a very useful and valuable question for us humans to ask. And I do believe that we are finding the most valuable things that we have as humans. To me, it means really using our heart, being human to human, supporting and helping each other in this world, being capable of making the ethical decisions that are needed. There are some people who are saying that, well, actually, pretty soon artificial intelligence is capable of doing everything that we humans are, so there is nothing for us to do anymore. I don't believe that. First of all, if we think about we asking, for example, artificial intelligence to answer the question that how can you, let's say, stop the war in Ukraine? Can it give you an implementable answer to that question? It can't really, for the reason that that problem is connected to us humans, how we act, how we behave, how we consume, how we treat each other. And an outside machine cannot solve those problems for us. They are connected to us, and it's the question that we need to look the world anew in a different way. And that again makes that kind of big global challenges, it makes them educational challenges. There is also some people that saying that, and are talking about artificial intelligence as it learns, that it kind of is capable of learning as we as humans are learning. I said that the learning happens in the interaction between the learner and the world. Does the AI engage with the world? It kind of does. But I'm saying kind of because it is only engaging with the written and drawn texts and material that we as humans are talking and telling about the world. But that's not the world. They are, in that sense, AI is not capable of engaging the world with the world as we humans are. And there's one very, very important question for us, and that's the question that we have a body. We are bodily creatures. And that is really something that kind of brings me to this picture, which I have been looking with admiration, because those two butterflies standing in that manner to each other and creating the form of the eyes of an owl to make sure that the predators aren't eating them. And the thing that picture raises in me is the question that which university those flies go to learn to do that. I'm not going to talk more about the education of butterflies, but the question for us humans is that we have that same wisdom in our bodies, incorporated in us, that we should be capable of utilizing. And talking about the survival challenges that are in front of us, doing it together, using that collective wisdom that we have in a new way. But that requires that we need to be capable of having that connection to ourselves, to our bodies, and also having that connection to other humans, which is something that more and more people find very difficult to do, to connect with other people. And that's a very, very fundamental human ability that we should definitely try to nurture again. The education has, during the last decades, concentrated on developing curriculums all around the world. And these components in this picture are present in some ways in many, many curriculums around the world. There is the knowledge component, knowing things. But then there is the skills competence, the ability to do things. And then there is the character, the person ability part, which is included. And then the meta learning abilities, the ability to think about our own thinking, have that perspective from outside on looking how we think and how we learn. With the world in front of us, all these elements are needed in the future. In the same way that we still need in the future, we need the capabilities from the industrial era, we need them from the information era, and we need them from the interaction era, bringing those hands, that head, mind, and also that heart together in education. But there is one more element that with the development of artificial intelligence is becoming more and more important. And that is the question of motivation, agency, purpose, and identity. Because it's not enough in today's world that what you know. That's not enough. It's not enough to know what to do with what you know. but you need to also have the motivation to use the skills to do things with what you know. And actually, that's the most important piece. You might know kind of more things in the world than anybody else, but if you're not willing to use that knowledge to make a better and more peaceful world, what good is it of knowing all those things? And the same with the skills. So that very, very question that how can we support our students to have that internal motivation to create their own path, make a difference in the world, support their communities, do the things they see that are ethically the right things to do, is something that we have to truly consider when we are developing the education in the era of AI. And that means that a more holistic education is ever more important. And that comes out in kind of different kind of solutions and projections and plans that have been made. If you look at, for example, the Learning Compass of OECD 2030 work, that kind of an idea is very strongly present there. It's very strongly present in the work that we have been creating and are developing our educational programs and the IB. And also in the work, for example, that is done by the redesign, the curriculum organization that is helping governments around the world to develop their curriculums. So that and understanding the holistic education not only by having many subjects, but understanding that we need to learn to know, we need to learn to do, and we need to learn to be, and we need to learn to become. And that is truly holistic education. What we are doing to support this kind of a way of education, we are piloting with 4 schools in different parts of the world to create a new entity, a new kind of a study course as part of the IB diploma program. And how we do it is that it is a project-based course where most of the learning is based on teamwork, where we are looking at the big global challenges that the young generations are faced with, but also what are deeply meaningful for them. And in this case, those 4 areas are migration, energy, food, and biodiversity. And we are, when looking at those questions and asking also the students to come up with solutions for those challenges, we are looking at the questions, of course, through the traditional subjects, but also through systems thinking, future studies, and change leadership. Again, for the reason for them to grow into that motivation of making a difference. And I have had a pleasure of talking with the students, the teachers, and the other school staff who have been running these projects for 2 years now. And it is really, really encouraging to discuss with them. Because of course, the students often say that it's very there's a lot of work to do, and it's really stressful to go through all the studies. But the thing that they are saying with this is that it's so motivating to work with those topics and do it together with others, that we don't feel the stress the same way that we used to. And what a stronger way to build that kind of lifelong learning mentality, the internal motivation to engage with the world and constantly learn new things. The question, of course, is that how are we capable of implementing these kind of things, not only to some schools, but so that every school can be a good school in the future. And there is a big question exactly that we're tackling together with Bunkyo City on the teachers' professional training and professional development initiative. Because it's the same thing with teachers, that student agency cannot be supported if the teacher agency isn't there. So the teacher's ability and having the support for the teachers to be on top of developing their own work is so, so important. That if there is constantly a an idea that there is change that comes somewhere outside from the top down, that is a demand, an extra demand which you don't fully understand that why is it there. There is a very natural attitude to resist that kind of an approach. Teachers are very proud, for good reason, for their professionalism. And if there isn't a understanding why things are done, things probably won't happen in classrooms. So the question is that how to enable teachers to have that internal motivation? Because that's really the key to the change happening in schools. And there we must really look at the whole education system. This is one illustration that is done by Jeff Masters, who was the director of the Australian Centre for Education Studies, Education Research, where he described the different elements of a learning system. And there are, of course, elements like the curriculum, the assessment system, the student support elements, the capable administration of education, and so on. The thing is that it's not enough that there are those individual pieces, but what makes a well-functioning education system is that those different elements are developed in a coherent way. And they are developed so that the whole system moves to the same direction. There's no use to have a great curriculum if the assessment system is not aligned with the curriculum. We know those cases that always the assessment wins. That's the way how it functions. So the work that when curriculum is developed, it should be done in very strong kind of contact and in sync with the development of the assessment system. And that applies to the whole education. That's the way actually we're, in today's world, how we're looking at the IB. We're seeing an IB being an education system on a global level, working with many other systems in national level or private or international education systems. Because that's how we believe that good results are done. The most important thing is not how individual actors are functioning. The most important thing is the quality of interactions between different actors. I'm coming to the end of my presentation. I just wanted to end my presentation by kind of underlying the importance of the youth well-being challenges. We are seeing a phenomena which has kind of become a reality in education in quite a short period of time. That we are seeing through research and different surveys that the young generations feel that they are less in control of their own lives than ever before in the time of those surveys done. There are surveys who are saying that 75% of young people 15 to 25 say that future is a scary place for them. And in the same survey, too many of them say that they believe that the world will come to an end during their lifetime. Think about that kind of a world prospect of building your own path. If you believe that while I'm here, the world will end. But that's the reality where many, many young people are living today. And of course, this is something entirely new in this scale for the education systems, and kind of the first reaction often is that, could somebody else take care of this? Could there be a kind of a specialist who would help us with this so that we can just concentrate what we were doing earlier? But that won't work. We have to take those challenges for real, because they walk in, hopefully, every day to the school in the form of the students. We cannot deny that fact. And we have to find ways to deal with those challenges. Here is a good sentence that one student put it very nicely, that saying that in education, you are first telling that the world you have created is kind of ruining everything. And the next thing you ask of us is for us to be a master in that same world. There is no logic in that. And unfortunately, that student is right. That's what we're quite often saying. We are at the same time saying in some classes that we are creating all these problems in the world which threaten the existence of the mankind. And then we are asking them that if you do these and these and these things, you will come successful in that same system. We have to be honest with the students, because they see that there is a contradiction with this. And kind of us daring to say this kind of controversies aloud is the first step to create a better education system. And that requires really from us sometimes to dare to swim against the tide. Education is probably the strongest power that societies have to transform the societies to be better. There's so much discussion in the public discourse, in media, newspapers today, which is all about education being the problem. That it's kind of problem. Learning outcomes going down, students having well-being problems, the school is broken, whatever. And we as educators, we have to always keep in our mind that education is not the problem. Education is the solution for a better and more peaceful world. Thank you very much for your attention.
オリベッカ・ハイノネン総裁、ありがとうございました。